Okay, welcome everyone. Today we're going to discuss how and why to grow fruit from seed. Why would you want to grow fruit from seed? Well, although you can't guarantee to get the exact same fruit as what you ate because of cross-pollination, you can get a brand new fruit that doesn't exist anywhere else. So it might be a decent fruit, might be bad. If you're really lucky, you'll get a better one, but that's rare. But no matter what, you will get fruit from it, and it'll be a brand new species, or I guess not species, my bad, variety, that's probably a better way to put it. A brand new variety of that particular fruit. Because like this apple was probably not, this is a gala apple, and it was probably not pollinated by another gala apple. And so, who knows what it'll produce. But if it produces something we don't like, or we don't want to wait however many years it takes it to fruit, when the tree gets bigger, obviously you can't do anything at this age, but when it gets bigger, we can graft a better apple onto it. And then the same with these pears. To grow fruit from seed, the main thing you want to know is where the fruit came from. This particular pear, you can see it says USA right there. If it'll focus. Maybe if I set it down so only my hands move. Well, there we go. You can see it says USA at the bottom, meaning it's a product of the United States. I don't know about other countries, but if you're watching the United States, all produce that comes in from other places has to be irradiated to kill off any diseases or pests that might be hiding inside of it. That process also happens to kill the seeds inside of the fruit. So any fruit that says product of Mexico or anywhere else for that matter, it won't grow. But if it's a product of the USA, it will grow. So this apple, I checked the bag that the apples came in, it said they're a product of the US as well. So that's the main thing. And that goes for anything you're trying to grow from seed that you bought at the store. The other thing is, many fruits require cold stratification to grow. This means that like they need a couple months of cold before they'll grow. That's to protect them from winter, because where they grow natively, they have harsh winters. And so like, as you can imagine, little seedlings like these would die if they popped up in the middle of winter. So to stop that from happening, the seeds have a genetic code in them that keeps them from growing until after the cold weather's passed. So to mimic that, what we do is we put the seeds in cold storage, such as a refrigerator, for a couple of months, and then when we take them out, they should be ready to sprout if they haven't already sprouted on their own. So how do we grow these fruits from seed? And specifically, how do we do cold stratification? Alright, so growing apples from seed, or pears for that matter. After eating your fruit, the next step is to get the seeds out. Just kind of cut in there. Careful not to cut through your seeds. And careful not to throw them all over yourself too. That's always a plus. Now, maybe it's just because gala apples are a smaller variety, but these seeds to me look like they might not be viable. Some of them look fine. Okay, some of them look a little flat, but some of these look okay, so we'll give it a try. Worst case scenario, this is only one batch of seeds, so I should be fine. Come here, you little midget seed. So some of these look a little flat and sad and pathetic, but I'm gonna go ahead and just use all of them because I can just throw away anything that doesn't sprout. And by throw away, I mean compost. Hopefully, anyway. Alright, so there's a couple ways you could do this. You could plant them outside, and then over winter they would be in the cold long enough that they'd sprout come springtime. Or you can plant them in soil in baggies or plant them in soil in containers. First thing I'm going to show you though is probably the easiest. You just get a paper towel and you just get it wet. Try not to like get it too soaking wet. Just a little damp's all you need. Because we don't want, the thing is, no matter what medium we use to grow the seeds, we don't want it to be too dry because the seeds will dry out, especially in the refrigerator. So then we take our moist paper towel and put our seeds on it. So we take our moist paper towel, we put our seeds on it, we fold them up in it. Probably want to grab the side that doesn't have a bunch of seeds on it. Press them in. And you get a baggie. I went ahead and pre-labeled it. And the date. And the date's useful because then you'll know when it's been 3 months. And then all you do is you just plop it on in the bag. It's just a regular old sandwich bag or snack bag with a moist paper towel. This is probably the most basic way to cold stratify your seeds. Next I'll show you some easier ways, but this is a simple way, especially if you don't have a lot of soil to spare. Because I shouldn't even say soil, it should be like pot and mix or something sterile. I usually just use pot and mix because I'm not willing to buy something just for sprouting seeds. I like to do the if it lives, it lives, nature finds a way kind of way of gardening, but for best results you want to use something sterile. Oops. And then all we do is we just put it in the refrigerator. Just anywhere in there. And then we forget about it for 3 months. And then 3 months from now, it should hopefully be sprouted, and we can have little trees to plant like these. Another way to stratify your seeds, and this happens to be my favorite, is you get a container, such as this old fruit cup, and you just fill it with some potting soil. Like so. And honestly, you probably don't need that much, since this isn't what you're actually going to grow in. Yeah, you really don't need too much, since you're just basically putting seeds on it. But so you just get your seeds. These are straight out of a rotten pear. That's also another good reason to grow fruit from seed. So you left a pear in the fridge for a month and you never ate it and it's all rotten now, right? Well, maybe you can at least salvage the seeds from it and get another fruit tree in a couple years. That way you didn't waste that pear, you just bought a whole pear tree. And the reason I like this method better than the other way with the paper towel is you don't have as bad of a mold problem. Because the soil is not as good a medium for it. Or maybe there are fungi growing in here, but I don't see them, so that's what matters. Yes, I know fungus is good for plants, but we're talking about seedlings here, not not full-grown trees. These are kind of sticky because I literally just got them out of a rotten pear, but oh well. Maybe just cover it with a little more soil. And if you don't want to use soil, you can use, I say pot soil. I'm not sure that there's any actual soil in pot and mix, but you know, you can use peat moss or coconut coir. Now, a lot of times people will mix sand and coconut coir / peat moss together. I'm too lazy for that, so I just like to use just plain pot and soil, and that usually works. If your soil's moist, you can just go ahead and close it like this. Mine's a little dry, so I need to get some water. And then you don't want to add too much, because keep in mind this water has nowhere to go. And that should be enough. I know it didn't get over everything, but it'll evaporate, and then since it'll be closed, it'll condensate and it'll get all over everything, which is what matters. So then we mark when we put it in the fridge and what it is. I've had this in the fridge for a month already, so it'll probably only need to be in there for 2 months, but that's assuming the pears weren't refrigerated before I bought them either. But yeah, and then you just stick that in the fridge, come back 3 months later or less, depending on how long the stuff was refrigerated before you put the seeds in, and they'll grow. Same thing also works for peach seeds. Instead of looking at the seed container, oh, there's a thought. Let's look at some trees. These are some pear trees I grew. Yeah, so what was I saying? This method works for apples, pears, peaches, plums, cherries. Thing about the stone fruits, which are the peaches, plums, nectarines, apricots, and cherries. Probably some others I'm missing. They have pits, which you can just plant the pit directly. You'll probably have a better success rate if you break it out of the kernel or the seed out of the pit. But that's also a lot of work, and you can easily break. Sorry, you can easily break the seed in the process. So you might just plant the whole pit and not worry about it. But yeah, so those are my pear trees. I'm not sure if these are Bartlett pears or if they're Bradfords, because I put both seeds in the same container stupidly. So I don't know which ones they are. Though it doesn't matter because I'm planning to graft onto them anyway. Okay, so it's only been a month since I started these, but I peeked inside and they're already sprouting, so we'll just go ahead and get started. Sometimes your stuff's going to sprout a lot sooner than you expect, because although it takes about 3 months of cold stratification, the apples have been in refrigeration for a long time at the store and then before I ate them and all that, so still plenty of stuff growing. As you can see, one of the reasons I don't like using a wet paper towel is there's a lot of mold in this. But let's just peek inside again. You see we got all these growing. So then all we do is we get our container we're planting them in. And we just start transplanting. Now, I could do one per container. I really have not had any of them die on me yet, but I don't want to like waste a whole container worth of space on one of these and then nothing happens and I've just wasted time. So I usually plant several to a container, and then when they get bigger I just transplant them again. If I know I'm going to need more than one container, I usually do a couple smaller ones that look less likely to grow, and then some that are obviously growing, just so that way cover all my bases. Here's one that hasn't sprouted yet, but I'm going to go ahead and plant it. And then here's one from the apple I took out in the video. You can see the difference between a good seed and a bad one. So just discard those next time. This little one's just barely sprouting. But we'll go ahead and plant them. And then when I'm done here, I'll give those some water. And here's another container. Little dude fell out of the napkin. Gotta be careful not to break the root, because if you break the root or something, then it definitely won't grow, but otherwise it should grow just fine. And you don't have to bury it completely when you're putting it in. Just get it in there most of the way, and then you can add some more soil on top. That looks like quite a few for 2 containers, so I'm gonna plant the rest of them in my fancy containers. Super fancy used styrofoam cups. Yeah, see? This is where I plant most stuff in, but I had some of these left over from transplanting the pears into bigger containers. So you just cover it up a little bit. And you should see those start sprouting out soon. We'll give them some water. Guess I could go ahead and plant one of the apples right now. So here's what I do. Poke some holes for drainage. I don't know how many holes you really need, but I don't think it matters too much. Considering they've barely sprouted, this is a pretty big container for them, but I'm going to go ahead and bet that they'll actually grow. And if they don't, I'll just stick some seeds in there for another plant and just keep doing that until something makes it. I usually don't like to do that, but sometimes I don't mind. And I'm compacting it just a little bit. You don't want to compact it too much because it needs to be loose enough for the roots to grow, but it's going to compact a lot when you water it, so the more compaction you give it ahead of time, the less you have to worry about later. Alright, we'll make that one my center one. And then this little dude can go off to the side, and if it grows just fine, I can pull it out later. Just a little bit more on the top. Then all it's left to do is water. Alright, to recap, why would you want to grow fruit from seed? Well, for one thing, it's fun. You get to watch something go from seed all the way to a tree that potentially produces food you can eat. I mean, to me, that's just very enjoyable, and I imagine if you're watching this video, you probably agree. Food, like I mentioned, it's going to produce food you can eat. We're talking about fruit trees here, so you can eat it, and if it tastes bad or it's not great, no big deal. You can always graft a good variety onto it. Though there's also the likelihood you might get something interesting, a new variety no one's seen. Might be the best variety ever. Every variety that exists was originally grown from seed. These gala apples were originally grown from seed, and someone liked them enough to save it and graft it onto other seedling apple trees. So you might produce the next one. It'd be hitting the lottery, no doubt. More than likely you get a mediocre to bad apple, in which case you decide if it's good enough to use, and if it's not, you top work it and you graft on a better variety. And then it's really free and inexpensive way to get trees. You just plant the seeds that you were going to eat anyway. I mean, the soil might cost you much, but you could always just use dirt. It won't be as good, but if you're transplanting it outside soon enough, it'll probably be okay. And if not, well, if you have a little bit of soil to spare, I mean, it's not that much soil, and it's still less expensive than buying a tree. And you don't have to wait until it produces fruit to graft it. Like when it's a year old, you can just cut it and graft on an entirely good one and have one known variety right off the bat. You don't have to like wait several years to find out if what you're growing is a good variety. So there's really no loss to it. If it's a bad variety or you don't feel like waiting as long, you graft on an older, better variety that fruits sooner, tastes better, and you're fine. Or you wait it out, see if it's good, maybe get something no one's ever seen before. There's really no loss to it. Hopefully this video was helpful enough in showing you how to do it. And as I mentioned, this works for all types of fruits except for those that don't need cold stratification, in which case you just plant them directly. Like oranges, for instance, you just plant those directly and keep them wet enough, and that's all it takes for that. If I get some oranges that actually have seeds in them, I might show you how to do that, but that's hard to come by. Anyway, that's all for today. I'm Chase the Great Gardener. Happy planting.